Midnight comes from my favourite era of Doctor Who, before it became more...
Put a ticket in, make a name.
This video will be spoiler heavy. By the way, Star Wars fans, I haven't forgotten about you and am working on a slightly more in-depth video about the original trilogy coming out for May the 4th. So, general synopsis. The Doctor and Donna go on holiday to the planet Midnight. Its surface is completely inhospitable to all known life forms, but...
life, finds a way.
The planet hosts tours in protected vehicles. The Doctor decides to go off on a bus trip to see the Sapphire Waterfalls, while Donna stays behind, relaxing in the spa. However, midway on the new route, the bus suddenly shuts down. A mysterious entity infiltrates the shuttle. Trapped in this claustrophobic setting, fear and paranoia quickly rise, and things degenerate. The entity takes over one of the passengers, a woman called Skye. Through her, it repeats and copies the other passenger's speech, and eventually takes over the Doctor, leaving him in a helpless trance-like state. In their hysteria, the other passengers convince themselves that the Doctor is now the problem, and try to throw him out. The hostess, realising what has actually happened, sacrifices her life by taking herself and Skye out into the atmosphere. This episode was designed to be filmed quickly and on the cheap, so they could film another episode primarily using Donna and not the Doctor, called Turn Left, at the same time. It was originally meant to be a more comedic episode, in the style of the show Most Haunted, but this was scrapped at the last minute in favour of something more serious. Russell wanted a change of tone, so he quickly whipped up this little story. But restraints like this often lead to a lot of great horror.
With low budget comes great creativity.
Russell T Davies drew upon his hatred for children mimicking him.
It's a thing that kids do, say go to bed, they go to bed, shut up. And when someone keeps doing it, it drives you mad. When a kid really sustains it for like 5 minutes, 5 minutes is enough, it drives you bonkers. And I think it robs you of something. We are our voices. Somehow it's like it's taken away and it's mocked.
All right, now stop it. This isn't fun. Stop it. This isn't fun.
He also drew upon his own experiences from writing Voyage of the Damned, which showed the best of humanity under extreme duress. Now he wanted to explore what would happen in a similar situation if those instead gave into their fears and turned on each other, in an arguably more realistic outcome. Oh, Russell, what happened to you? Anyway, David Tennant said it was the closest he's ever felt to doing theatre on television, which makes sense. It's been adapted 3 times for the stage, which also makes sense. It's very dialogue heavy with one main set location.
She's got my voice. She's got my words.
There's a few production errors in this, as are in a lot of Doctor Who episodes. You can see the boom guy in the window reflection, and Donna's handset was clearly supposed to be wired. She was meant to hold it upside down, apparently, so nobody would notice, but it got missed. However, that's part of the charm of Doctor Who for me. It's like creating a very frightening weapon from a plunger and a whisk. So the other passengers on board are the Professor, who thinks in absolutes and that he knows everything. Dee Dee, who is his student with a brilliant mind, but is ultimately swayed by the others. Val is the mother character, who appears friendly with the Doctor. They're really ha-haing it up, but her fear completely turns her into a monster screaming for Biff to kill him.
Finish him. It'll be you next.
She continually shuts down and belittles her son, Jethro,
He's just a boy.
who mostly stays out of the conversation until he's useful to Val by agreeing with her. Russell said if there was a monster on that ship, it was Val, driving the hysteria forward. He also said that he would probably be a Val in that situation, which I find interesting. And then there's Biff. Yeah, his name is Biff. He's Val's husband. Biff seems to have a particular disdain for the Doctor, and I think there's some wannabe alpha male shit going on here.
Take hold of someone and throw them out of that door. Calling me a coward.
The Doctor directly challenges him and asserts authority over the group. Biff appears to be a weak man who seems mainly concerned with trying to impress his wife and assert his manliness, than actually helping the situation that they're in. But I digress. Skye Silvestri is a woman that we don't really learn too much about, apart from that she's travelling on her own and her wife just left her. She also seemed particularly intent about getting to their destination.
I'm on a schedule. This is completely unnecessary. Back to your seats. Thank you.
Leslie Sharp, who plays Skye, does a really good job of being unnerving. The look in her eyes is really something else. It's so eerie to see her in the background over his shoulder and her mouth is still going. The entity is almost like a spectral energy vampire parasite. Why else would it at the end be talking about being in a cabin full of hot bodies and blood?
So long.
In the dark.
In the dark.
And the cold.
And the cold.
According to Davis, Skye was planning to unalive herself once they got to the waterfall, which I suppose is part of what made her the prime target for this psychic being, with her already being in such a vulnerable state mentally. Skye's...
Don't just stand there telling us the rules. You're the hostess. You're supposed to do something.
line and intonation is triggering to anyone who has ever worked a service job, and is also devastating in retrospect, as ultimately she does, by giving her life to save a group of people who don't even know her name. The hostess is a great addition because the audience largely takes their eyes off of her as she's in a uniform. She's just there to lay down the rules, tell people to go back to their seats, blah de blah. But the whole time, she has been truly watching and listening to what was happening, and in my opinion made the right call by saying,
We should throw her out.
it was the Doctor's instinct to want to spare this strange new life form, which very nearly led to him being ousted, and could have led to far greater reaches of destruction if the entity had made it back to the base. It's already shown that it can learn and evolve at a rapid pace. Who knows what else it would have done if given the opportunity? It's harsh but true. Sometimes you just gotta accept the collateral damage for the bigger picture and take a bitch out. Hostess knew this and did it to save everybody else. It's gut-wrenching when after it's all over the Doctor asks what her name was and nobody knows. Particularly bad the Professor doesn't know, considering he's apparently done this tour 14 times. Good job, Teach. Well done. This creature gets stronger as a direct result of Ten's biggest weapon, speech.
Shamble, bobble, dibble, dooble.
This time though, the Doctor doesn't have anything to help him out. Normally he's got so many tricks to throw about, but here he can't. He's got nothing. Nada. Zilch. We're so used to the Doctor either having all the answers or being able to figure it out, so when his usual tactics backfire, this feels like uncharted territory for us as well.
The unknown is always more terrifying than the known, I think. And this episode plays on that quite a lot.
There wasn't some goofy costume added. It was an invisible entity which relied on the paranoia and irrational reactions from the humans for its scares. It kind of felt like it was feeding off of it and exacerbating it because everybody seemed to lose their mind. The episode has a lot to say about how people treat others they see as beneath them somehow. The hostess, the teenager, the student, they all get talked down to, as does the hostess with the Doctor at certain points, as does the Doctor with everybody else, as he sees himself as better. I mean, he kind of is, but, don't make it known. A hell of a lot of effort was put in by the actors, editors, and sound design to create the scares.
This episode is quite different to other episodes of Doctor Who because there's not many monster noises to design, but it's a psychological one. And this is something that we haven't really touched on Doctor Who before. Normally it's like if you go to a werewolf or a beast or something like that. But this one, because it's dialogue driven, that's why it's quite difficult.
The music and sound production also added a lot. It's unrelenting. The sound team won a couple of awards, including a BAFTA for this episode, very deservedly so.
There's no room for error because you have to say exactly what someone else is saying. You can't sort of make any slip-ups. The most difficult sequences to shoot were the ones where I had to be absolutely in sync with David.
Sky, is it Sky?
Things reached their breaking point after this moment.
How did you know what to do? Because I'm clever!
It instantly turns the rest of them off as he comes across as arrogant. This is a prime example of why the Doctor needs a companion, someone to keep him humble and human.
You idiot. They're born with their brains in their hands, don't you see? That makes them peaceful. They've got to be, because a creature like that would have to trust anyone it meets.
Oh, nice one.
Thank you.
I also get the impression that maybe Ten was panicking a bit himself. He didn't want to out himself as a 900-year-old alien. In their state of heightened fear, they might throw him out just for that. Especially old Biff, he hates him already. With nobody to speak on his behalf or back him up, we're frightened for him. David said it's very rare to see the Doctor out of control, but he cannot control people. Someone said to me that Doctor Who as a character was a father for the fatherless.
There you are, my child. It's nice to see you so well again, and you, my boy.
He was made for children who lost their dads and granddads after the Second World War. He's jolly and tells corny jokes most of the time.
There's no point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes.
But when shit hits the fan, he gets real. He's got the 1,000-yard stare of a weathered soldier. And if you're on the wrong end of that, God help you. Modern Doctor Who seems to have forgotten how to actually do this properly. Doctor Who's always been a bit of a silly, campy show. But there's also still been a serious undercurrent to the character itself, which I just don't feel out of the modern Doctor Who. I don't feel that authentically. There's nothing against Nishiki Katwa as a person, as an actor. I think he's putting his all into it.
Classic.
But I don't see him as a father to the fatherless, even with the space babies.
I'm sorry, Poppy, I'm so sorry, but we are not your mummy and daddy. I wish we were, but we're not.
Anyway, back to the episode. Midnight is all about flawed characters. And despite this being the episode which shows the Doctor at his most vulnerable, it's probably my favourite in terms of writing and stakes. showing us that even the mighty can fall and ultimately need help sometimes, which is very human. Anyway, let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree and why, and hope you have a good day. See ya, bye.